All right, we got Saturday simulcast. Sans the great Alan Karpuk, who is on assignment, and that's not going to slow our roll, right? Goldenblack.com waits for nobody. So it's just me and Mike Carmin, the great Mike Carmin, in the flesh, zooming via his phone, I'm guessing in a vehicle. And we're going to talk some Purdue Boilermaker hoops and some football. Of course, this simulcast is brought to you by the Union Club Hotel. Hey, man, Mike and I can vouch for the quality of that establishment. We just dined at Walk-Ons about a week or so ago in the
Yes.
basement of the Union. Mike, what did you think of the Union Club experience?
They've done some really good things over there, and uh, I had breakfast over there shortly after it opened a couple years ago. So yeah, they've done some good things over there, and um, maybe they could put me up in one of their rooms one day. I don't know.
Yeah, between the lower level of the Union, of course, the hotel portion with the Boiler Up Bar and the other restaurants, 811 Bistro, I think, just a fantastic setup they got over there now. But Mike, we're not here to talk about egg white omelets and veggie burgers and milkshakes. We're here to talk some Boilermaker hoops, buddy. And kind of, you've been on the beat a long time. And just first of all, your assessment of the Iowa game. Nice gutty win against a scrappy Iowa team, Mike. But is there any reason for concern given some of Purdue's issues with handling that press?
Well, there's always going to be issues because they had 17 turnovers last night or Thursday, coming off a game where they had 16 at Indiana. Now, not every team is going to press Purdue like Iowa did. So every game is going to be different. But it's an area they need to clean up. I mean, they had 5 turnovers in the first half. They had 12 in the second. I thought Braden Smith did a good job handling the press. He was a one-man press breaker for a lot of possessions and was able to get Purdue in the offense. He got his own offense going. But 17 is just way too many. And it gets masked over a little bit because they out rebound them by 20. They had 4 players in double figures. They had a 21-point lead. But anybody that's familiar with the Purdue and Iowa script, this is what happens at Mackey Arena, where Purdue gets a big lead, Iowa presses, and then the game gets down to single digits. And then in most cases, not all, but Purdue finds a way to win. But yeah, they've got to clean that area up because they're going to get pressed. They're going to come across a team in the NCAA tournament that's long and athletic and is going to be able to bother them in a full court pressure situation. And they've got to be able to handle that. And I watched them practice against it on Tuesday. Practice is practice, and they handled it well. And I think for the most part, they were handling it well until they didn't handle it well. And what gets lost in all this is that, Iowa's good at it. Iowa's really good at what they do with this press, and it has been Purdue's kryptonite over the years. And they've done enough to survive some of those games, and they were able to close it out last night by getting the ball to Zach-Edey and stretching that lead back to double digits.
23-2 overall, 12-2 in the Big Ten, Mike. 6 games remaining in the regular season, 3 on the road and 3 at home. Is there any one game you got circled maybe that would have you worried if you were a map painter?
Well, Sunday, Northwestern is worrisome because it's going to be a low possession game, and Purdue's going to have to take care of the ball. You can't be giving away possessions in a game like that. It's not going to be, I don't anticipate it being an up and down type game like Thursday night. There's going to be more deliberate play. Northwestern is playing much better defense than it has in recent years. Now, they've got to play defense against a 7-4 guy, which they can't simulate in practice. But that game is, because it's on the road, is one that has your attention. But then next week at Maryland definitely has your attention. the way Maryland plays at home and what Maryland did to Purdue in the second half with the press. So really, I could go down the list. Now, on paper, Ohio State doesn't seem like it would be much of a challenge, but that's still a tremendously talented team. And then you've got Indiana, Wisconsin, and Illinois. So every game should have Purdue's attention. And to me, they're going to win the Big Ten. Okay. I think we all know that. It's not going to be a surprise that they win the Big Ten. The question is by how many games. But once they clinch the Big Ten, can they remain sharp in those final regular season games going into the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament?
And then what are they going to really get out of playing in the Big Ten tournament too, you know?
Well, probably nothing other than a chance to win another championship. They're, depending on the coach, depending on the situation, it may not mean anything. Purdue's goal, along with winning the Big Ten, in my opinion, the secondary goal or the next goal is to get the number 1 overall seed, because that puts you in a regional in Louisville. Get you the first and second rounds in Columbus. And what you don't want to have happen is you slip a little bit. Alabama gets the number 1 overall seed, or Alabama gets ahead of you in the rankings, and they go to Louisville, because you don't want to go to Kansas City, because Kansas is going to be sitting there as a number 2 seed, and you're going to be a number 1 seed, and you're going to be at a crowd disadvantage. And that's a bad place for a number 1 seed to be in my opinion. But these sites are selected so far in advance that that's just what it is. But that you got to hang on to that number 1 overall seed, and I think Purdue can absorb another loss or two and still hang on to that, depending on what Alabama and some of these other teams do. But once you win the Big Ten, the idea of having something to play for in those last few games, I think remains really important for this team.
Who's the leader of this team, Mike?
You go to your captains, Gillis and Morton, but Zach-Edey is the leader. He's soft-spoken, but carries a lot of weight. I think they have a lot of leaders on this team, and that's one reason I think they're pretty connected, is that everybody kind of leads in their own little way. They don't need to be pulled along by a string. Braden Smith is a leader in some fashion, the way he handles the ball, and he was a magician with the ball last night for a lot of that game. Fletcher Lawyer's a kind of a born leader. He's got those intangibles already in his system based on his upbringing and and his parents. So you've got a lot of leaders on this team. Morton leads with his defense. Gillis leads with his hustle and his toughness. And I think that kind of why this team is where it's at. It's come together in that way. I don't think they look to one specific guy to be the leader, because I think they all can do it in some capacity, depending on the situation and what needs to be done at that time.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, especially these freshman guards. I mean, obviously Braden Smith and Lawyer, to see how they've emerged has been one of the true storylines. I think in nationwide, honestly, to go from unranked to number 1 in the country, possible number 1 overall seed in the Big Ten, in the NCAA tournament, is astounding. I wonder too, Mike, if you subtract Zach-Edey, who do you think Purdue's MVP is?
Good question. You can go a lot of different directions. You'd probably lean toward one of the freshman guards right now, Lawyer and/or Smith. I mean, if you get 41 points and 9 assists from those two, you're going to go a long way in the NCAA tournament. And they had a nice bounce back game from a shooting perspective after IU, where they were 5 for 20. And they got things going Thursday night against Iowa by hitting some early shots and getting the crowd involved, getting themselves involved. You can tell the confidence, and not that they lack confidence, but it's better when shots go in. As you know, basketball at all levels is make or miss. Either you make them or you don't. But yeah, I think you'd have to look at one of those two. guards, but it also would depend on your definition of the MVP and what they do. I mean, to me, Caleb or not, Mason Gillis is extremely valuable because of all the things he does beyond scoring, and he would be certainly an MVP type of player. Ethan Morton, the way he plays defense, the way he has bought into playing defense. He's an offensive guy coming out of high school, wants to be an offensive guy, but knows for him to be on the court, he has to play defense, and he has to play guys like Chris Murray and Jalen Pickett and those guys for nearly 40 minutes. So he has some MVP qualities to him. The bench has done well. I mean, it's an interesting question, but Zach clearly is the MVP of this team, and he makes them go. But the beauty about last night was that Zach Edey had 4 points with 8 minutes, going to the free throw line with 8 minutes and 19 seconds to play. He had 4 points, and Purdue had 68. So everybody else but Zach Edey had scored a combined 64 points with 8 minutes to go in the game. And I know there's a narrative out there about Purdue, not from the people that cover Purdue or watch Purdue or the fan base, but when you get outside Purdue circles, the narrative is that Purdue is just Zach Edey. And we've seen this year, time and time again, that it's more than that. They need Zach. Yes, they need Zach Edey, and they'll need Zach Edey to go 30 and 20 probably in an NCAA tournament game. But last night showed once again you have other weapons there that can get you through a game. And hopefully that narrative changes a little bit about Purdue, because we've all seen it, but I don't think the whole country has seen it on a consistent basis because they're coming in and out of games. They're not staying for the whole game.
Yeah. Hey, before I hit you with a couple football questions, just because of your background covering women's basketball for so many years, just a quick thought on what Katie Gerald's has going on, Mike. 4 road wins in a row, I think it is. It seems like she's got the program maybe trending toward being back on solid footing. Just a couple quick impressions of Katie Gerald's and the job she's doing.
They got a big win Thursday at Rutgers. It's a game they needed to win, and they did. I think if they beat everybody but Indiana the rest of the way, they'll finish probably 5th in the Big Ten, and that's an improvement from last year. This year for Katie's program was all about finding a way to improve your position in the Big Ten, also make the NCAA tournament. And if they win all those games, they're probably not going to go win at Indiana. But if you win every other game before the Big Ten tournament, they're going to be in the NCAA tournament, and that's what this year is about. So they've taken a significant step forward this year so far. They still lack some talent and some skill across the roster. Now that's going to improve next year with a pretty good recruiting class coming in, and that's going to hold the key to making the next jump. Is what kind of talent level can you get to supplement what you have coming in? What can you get out of the portal that can really help you going into next year? But so far, so good, with Katie. They've had a couple of tough losses this year, but they've rebounded and they've done a good job. They're not at the top of the Big Ten, or should they be right now? But if they can finish 5th in that area, that's a huge improvement for them, something to build on, something to show somebody in the portal to say, hey, you're the missing piece for us to go from 5th to 3rd or something like that. And I know that's something they battled last off season as far as trying to get a portal kid. A lot of portal kids want to step into a situation where the team is ready to win right now.
Yeah.
Purdue women's basketball is not ready to win at the Big Ten championship level yet, but you get in the tournament this year, you show what you're about, add the recruiting class coming in that will help. Purdue's going to be closer to being in that position, next season.
Yeah, she's been impressive thus far. And then real quick, football-wise, you covered Purdue football, Big Ten football for a long time, Mike. I always really value your viewpoint and opinion and analysis. Just, again, Ryan Walters, some recent events, his contract became signed recently as well. Just thoughts on the contract, maybe his staff, as we move towards spring football, some things you're sort of going to be looking for and watching for this football program as we wade toward a March and spring and spring drills?
Well, as you've written and talked about, it's a really young staff. You have a young head coach. The salary and the contract are right in line with his age and experience. So he has room to grow in that area. It's a results based business, and what he does, what he gets in another contract will be based on his results here. I've never, I listened to him speak a little bit at signing day, and I've watched some of the press conference stuff. A very, impressive young man who seems to kind of know where he wants to go. But he's assembled, as you know, pretty young staff. But I know there was some concern that Purdue didn't go with an offensive head coach, but I think what he's done as far as the staff is concerned kind of fits what Purdue should be from an offensive standpoint. Now it's just a matter of getting the horses in there and the players in there to do it. I anticipate they'll be active in the portal again once that period opens up, later. So I expect them to make some moves there. But so far it's been everything's gone well so far, but they haven't played a game. So we'll see what happens in that area.
Yeah, September 2nd, Fresno State is the opener, obviously, and they take the lid off the season in Ross-Ade Stadium. And Mike, too, of course, renovations going on as we speak at Ross-Ade Stadium. Sounds like those are all on track, except for the nutrition center. So it's going to be fun to see what the reincarnation of Ross-Ade looks like. And I think it's going to be the 100th season, too, for Ross-Ade Stadium next year. So always fun to see your face and talk to you, Mike. You're admired man, a pro's pro, my friend, and appreciate you dropping some knowledge on us. Look for Mike's coverage from beautiful Evanston, Illinois. He'll be in the bunker up there on Sunday, providing all type of analysis. So, yeah, Mike, thanks again. And again, remember, this simulcast was brought to you by the Union Club Hotel right there off Grant Street. Just beautiful accommodations. Again, just to see the evolution of that place over my lifetime, it's really been exciting to see how that's been reimagined and what it looks like now. So, Mike, thanks again, sir. Safe travels and keep up the good work, buddy.
Well, thanks for the conversation and appreciate the work that you do.